Welcome back to the Friday Show, presented this week by the Maryland Jockey Club. Coming up March 14th, the racing is on Pi Day, 314. We'll get it, we'll explain, coming up. Glad to be joined by Ray Paulick. Ray, let's start out with the Saudi Cup. A $20 million purse, the world's richest horse race now, and the top four horses from the U.S. in the most recent NTRA poll are in this race. But before we get to that, when this was first announced last year, we had some internal discussions at the Paulick Report about how we might cover it, considering the political, the human rights issues in Saudi Arabia. You want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, we talked about it. This came up not long after the American resident Saudi citizen Jamal Khashoggi was murdered, and intelligence sources within the United States government laid the blame on people who worked directly for a member of the ruling family. And this is not the first incident involving the royal family and questionable practices, human rights. And so we did talk about it, and on the one hand, we're not a political site, we're a horse racing site. But on the other hand, we really don't want to glorify some of the things that we know that go on in Saudi Arabia. We're not there, we're not sending anybody there, but we are going to cover the race because, as you said, four of the top horses in this country are competing. It's $20 million. Whoever wins it will probably will be a son of the leading sire if that money is counted by Equibase and goes into all of the sire lists and all that sort of thing. If the money counts, it's whoever the trainer is going to have a big head start on the year, especially if it's a horse that won the Pegasus. And it's unavoidable. It reminds me a little bit of when Phil Mickelson went to play golf at a European PGA Tour event in Saudi Arabia. He took a lot of flack.
Well, he said, I expected to get criticism because I'm doing this. There was another golfer who came out and said, I'm not a politician, I'm a golfer. And Mickelson didn't go into great detail as to why he chose to go. He just said it was a part of the world he had never been to, and it was an opportunity to participate in an event he had never participated in. So I understand it's separating these things out. And we have top connections from our country going over there, knowing the situation. Bob Baffert, Bill Mott, people like that, sending their horses over. So, it's hard to criticize them for chasing a $20 million purse. And I'm also not one of those Americans who gets too high on their horse about other countries. Most countries in the world have some things that they are ashamed of or should be ashamed of, including our country. So I don't want to get too much into that. But it is a little touchy. And, Dubai, the Dubai World Cup is coming up in a month. Dubai is not immune to issues regarding treatment of women and things like that. So when you're going to grow a sport into emerging markets, you're going to be in countries that probably have some checkered pasts.
Yeah, and the Saudis have been involved in American horse racing for many years. Prince Khalid of Juddmonte Farms is truly one of the greatest sportsmen we have in the game. And he's got Tacitus going in the Saudi Cup. He's not a member, he's not a decision maker in Saudi Arabia. He's a prince. I don't know how many princes they have over there. They have, I think I read that there are thousands of members of the House of Saud, which is the ruling family. So you can't blame everybody for some of the things that go on, but collectively, it's not a culture that I celebrate in any way at all.
On the racing end of it, literally the top four contenders were in the poll this week. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's starting with Mucho Gusto, Maximum Security, and then you have Midnight Bisou. Let's not forget, she's a mare in this race, and then Mackenzie. I mean, it's a hell of a lineup. Not considering the 10 other horses in the field that I don't know much about, to be honest, and it looks on paper like this is going to be an American race, maybe even the Superfecta. But, it's not happening in our country, but we do have the top 4 horses in our country racing on Saturday against each other.
I'll be watching it. To me, it's more of a curiosity than anything else, because it's a racetrack that we're hearing is quite deep, and we don't know which horses will really adapt to it and which ones won't. It's a 1-turn mile and an eighth, which is Belmont Park has the same configuration, but it's a curiosity piece more than anything else, and whoever wins it will leave the country with a lot of money.
That's right. All right, there's another race on Saturday of big importance to the Kentucky Derby. That is the Fountain of Youth Stakes, featuring Dennis's Moment. We have not seen him since his disastrous run in the Breeders Cup Juvenile, where he finished last 21 1/4 lengths behind the winner. So this is very intriguing. Dale Romans has been so high on this horse all along. I think he's a little anxious, though, to see what he's going to get on Saturday.
Yeah, my big question about Dennis's Moment is, was he just a really good 2-year-old who was going to be a so-so 3-year-old, or is this a horse who's going to progress from 2 to 3? His races as a 2-year-old were really impressive, and then, of course, in the Breeders' Cup, he lost all chance at the start. Dale is very happy with how the horse has worked. He's going to be such a short price that I couldn't bet him. I'm going to be watching this race with interest to see if he has progressed from being an outstanding 2-year-old to a true classic contender as a 3-year-old. I may be wrong, but I'm looking for someone like Chance It, if he starts in the race, who drew the outside post to maybe upset Dennis's Moment.
Well, as we're recording this, Chance It, there is some discussion about maybe he's going to scratch and go in the Tampa Bay Derby because of that post position, because of the configuration of this particular distance at Gulfstream Park, with the outside post being compromised. But either way, this is no slam dunk for Dennis's Moment, even if Chance It scratches, because as seen on TV, who finished ahead behind him in the Macho Man Stakes, very good horse, and those horses had the 2 top buyer speed figures in this field, and that includes Dennis's Moment. Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher both have horses in this field. They probably have to improve, but we're talking about February 3-year-olds, so they could absolutely do that. And let's not forget about A.T. Indian, who is trained by Patrick Biancone, who had Sol Volante win impressively at Tampa Bay, and A.T. Indian has kind of a similar look to his PPs in that he raced on the turf and he's gotten on the dirt and improved significantly. So let's not forget about him. So I think this field is actually kind of deep.
Yeah, and we said this before, but this is a different world now as far as horses gearing up for the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown. They start later in their careers than ever before. They have fewer prep races than ever before. Let's not forget when Justify made his racing debut as a 3-year-old. And, Baffert doesn't have one in this race, Bob Baffert, but he just keeps rolling out one horse after another, and the most recent one was Charlatan. I'd like to know who that horse was named after. Was just incredible in a maiden breaking race, and so he's joined the other 37 or 38 horses in Baffert's barn that are Kentucky Derby contenders. I'm just kidding about that number, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, Baffert is loaded. They're coming out of the woodwork, and I guess this is the trend now. You don't have to be racing as a 2-year-old. We saw that with Justify. You don't have to necessarily have a bunch of prep races heading into the Derby. We've seen that in recent years. So my question is, and actually I'm going to post this on the website so you can share your opinion, who's going to win the Kentucky Derby this year as a trainer? Bob Baffert or anyone else? Let us know at PaulickReport.com with our poll. Well, Ray, on March 14th, it's Pi Day. I did not even know this day existed. It actually is a celebration of the mathematical equation pi. And at Laurel Park, the Maryland Jockey Club will be hosting a day of racing celebrating pi. It's March 14th, 314. Those are the 3 significant digits to start pi. So, it's kind of geeky.
Well, and you can box the 314 in every single race, and probably lose a lot of money. Yeah, some good stakes races that day, and some with some historical connotations to them. The Nellie Morse Stakes, of course, you know Nellie Morse. You saw her race as a 3-year-old, didn't you?
In 1924.
She won the Preakness Stakes that year. The Private Terms Stakes is run that day. Private Terms was a Maryland favorite. Went into the Kentucky Derby in 1988, unbeaten in 7 starts for Charlie Hadry, the great Charlie Hadry, and Stuart Janney Jr., the father of the current chairman of the Jockey Club. Got beat that day in the Kentucky Derby, but still he was a great Maryland horse. And then the Harrison E. Johnson Memorial Stakes. Do you remember Harrison Johnson?
Well, I recall that he was an African-American trainer.
He was. He was the leading African-American trainer in 1985 when he died in a tragic plane crash. So it's nice that the Maryland Jockey Club remembers him with the Harrison E. Johnson Memorial Stakes.
And those stakes, the 4 of them, worth more than $400,000 on Pi Day, March 14th at Laurel Park. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show. Thanks so much for joining us, and talk to you next time.